Good morning to all our viewers this morning. And I was talking to Pat McGarten. He was asking me if I had had a stroke. No, and the answer to that, sorry to say, Pat, I haven't had a stroke. Not yet, anyway. I've been to the dentist, so that's why I was over one side. Anyway,
God bless you.
my physique may be unwilling, but my heart is with it all.
Good for you.
Okay, so what are we going to do? How's your form, first of all, Pat? You haven't any.
Jude, finally, in Donegal, I think if they give 10 weather warnings a year on RTE, Donegal gets 9 of them. Because no, we get everything. But yesterday, and this is just a sort of description of what's happening here. It was Baltic, and there was a wind howling. I think there was gale force 10 at one stage. No, and this morning wasn't that much better, but the sun's shining now. So thanks be to God. Jesus, Jude, someone. I know we have to mention this before. I spent Christmas on Spain on Christmas morning. We were 24 degrees, and they sit here this last 3 or 4 days, dark, damp, grey, dull. It is depressing. Jesus, the quicker these dark days of winter disappear, the happier I'll be.
There's a stretch already to the evenings. I noticed that.
There is.
Better times are on their way.
Okay.
I mean, the sun was shining here earlier on.
Yeah, the sun's shining now.
It's cold.
It was terrible.
Do you get worse weather than Sligo?
I would think so. Sligo's slightly further south. No, it wouldn't be that much different, Jude. Let's be honest.
I have a sister living in Ross's Point, and right beside the sea. And every so often, you get so scared that she sort of decamps from the house because storms coming in just come smashing in.
Smashing in.
Is this image of the house being swamped completely?
Yeah, I spent quite a lot when I was a young fella. I worked out that way in a hotel, and by God, Jude, at night the wind howls out there because it's on the coast, of course.
We were watching a movie last night, and I couldn't hear the dialogue because of the wind whistling above us. Anyway, such things don't really matter. They're only personal comfort or discomfort. The first story you have, Pat, is this. Well, fair enough. Why wouldn't you? Mary Lou's visit on Sinn Féin meeting with the British Secretary of State and what was the British Secretary of State?
Yeah, it was Secretary of State and the Foreign Secretary.
Was that both of them were up in Belfast?
Both of them area,
and the both of them blocked Mary Lou.
All the years, Martin McGuinness, Jerry Adams, and all the rest have met British ministers. Not a thing. So I would love to know what the hell this sort of so-called protocol that emerged during the week. Now, whether it was some sort of a sort of sup to unionists. Oh, look, we've slapped Sinn Féin down.
What do you think of the chances that was the reason?
I think that's the main, and that would strike me as the main reason, because the rest doesn't hold up. They gave 3 different reasons, and including protocol about the fact that Mary Lou was not from the north and she was not elected in Northern Ireland, and so on, so on, so on. Jude, and of course too. Then afterwards, I saw Sir Geoffrey coming on last night. I was watching The View, and he said, in fact, this creates if Mary Lou becomes Taoiseach and so on, what's going to be the difficulties for us and so on in regard. So he's now jumping on this particular. I mean, Jude, it's a load of bollocks, absolute rubbish. Right, Jerry Adams, when he was in the Dáil, frequently met in regards to Northern Ireland. And by the way, how does Sinn Féin, though, when they're speaking to some British minister, cleverly wasn't elected in Northern Ireland? Neither was what he got. So this is a bollocks, absolute rubbish.
I hate to say it, but I can see they have a point. They're saying they're inviting the leaders of the parties in the north to a meeting.
Yeah.
Now, the leader of the party in the north of Sinn Féin is Michelle O'Neill.
Yeah.
So they could argue.
Can I stop you right there?
Yeah.
Michelle O'Neill was there, but she invited her party leader as well.
That's their point. Well, why? I mean, was she entitled to invite her party?
Yeah, she's entitled to invite the leaders, entitled to bring along anybody they like.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. The best thing of all, of course, is that it's a very short-sighted of them, because inevitably there was a backlash, and Sinn Féin must have been rubbing their hands with glee that the Brits once again, made them keep them at arm's length. We'll have nothing to do with them, etc., etc. Did you notice how quick and how positive the response of Leo Varadkar was to that whole thing?
There was it was shades of the old crocodile from moment from Arlene Foster. It was just, I am absolutely certain that the minute it happened, Sinn Féin, while publicly berating them and saying they must have been dancing in the aisles and saying, thanks be to God, because here's again, Joe Brawley came up and says, this is just typical. Joe did it, Joe the barrister, the former GE player and the pundit, who's I always think is one of the finest commentators. Him and Brian Finney, I think, are two superb guys at this. But anyway, Joe Brawley came out and said,
I agree with you.
And against which anyway, Joe Brawley had a really good go, and he says, no, this is what we have come to expect from British ministers over the years to the nationalist community. Contempt. They're going to decide who represents the nationalist community. Jude, and I was sitting there saying, I bet you this morning Mary Lou McDonald and Michelle O'Neill and all the rest of them are clapping their hands, because Jude, there's a real annoyance. This sort of treating representatives of the national community with contempt. That's some sort of, there is a contempt there.
I don't know.
They wouldn't have done it to a unionist.
That's one way of looking at it. But I think actually what they intended was, we'll have a firm stand here, and that will please the DUP.
That's exactly what they're at.
No, that's what they're trying to do. I don't think it was that the Brits had contempt for Irish people or for Irish politicians. They were trying to do a favour for the DUP and sort of sweeten them up a wee bit. The fact of the matter is that they are so politically blind that they didn't see beyond this move to how would people react. They would react, as you've just said, they'd say, oh no, this isn't the Brits bustling up things for the DUP. This is the Brits overweening overlords, telling people who's going to go out. Do you remember Brendan McKenna?
Yeah.
Brendan McKenna? The whole thing at the time of the Drumcree, the Unionists wouldn't meet with the residents because it was led by Brendan McKenna. I remember thinking at the time, in fact, I wrote about it and I said, that's bloody outrageous. It really is outrageous that somebody would say, who's allowed to lead your delegation into talk about discussing something. So I, as you say, I'd say the Shillers must be dancing with delight. The DUP have painted themselves into the most impossible bloody corner now. Because you said this is about the protocol, and that's what it was. They're making positive sounds in Dublin, positive sounds in Westminster, positive sounds in the EU about the possibility of solving the protocol. And yet Jeffrey Donaldson has come out only yesterday, I think it was, and said the protocol must go. We simply must get rid of it. We can't have any bits of it tinkered with. We don't want that. Now, that's not going to happen.
No.
It's simply not going to happen. They may paint it a different colour and then say, oh, the DUP, is a victory for them. They've changed it. But they won't change it in fact, because it just can't happen. Can't happen.
It's like, what do you call it, having a statue there, and somebody doesn't like the colour, so you paint the colour, but the statue remains.
Right.
And that you've just described it. Like, there is no way. It took, 4 years of negotiation to get to the protocol, and the British government and the EU signed it. Now they can tweak it and they can do bits to it and all the rest, but the protocol, it's back to that old cliched one where the tectonic plates of the EU and the UK meet are on the island of Ireland. And there has to be some sort of deal, because, in other words, if they don't have some sort of deal and there's just free movement between, you should have been no Brexit, there should have been no rules in regards to the EU, and that's simply not going to happen. To protect their single market, the EU has to bring in something.
That's true. And also, of course, don't forget that the Brits will be thinking not just in terms of the north of Ireland, but in terms of Scotland. They've somehow got to fight the good fight for the various regions and nations, as they say, of the United Kingdom. If they don't, then it'll look odd if they say to Scotland, please don't leave us. But again, the Brits are caught, because Scotland, the only way of stopping them is to say, you can't hold a referendum. And that's nuts. That wouldn't fly at all. The only way of working with them is find a way of getting a majority to vote down independence.
Yeah.
They can't do that here.
Yeah.
Because they'll not. There's no way that ship is sailed, as Joe Brawley said a long time ago. The chance when they had shortly after the Good Friday Agreement, bringing in nationalists to be happy, the modern nationalists be happy with life in Northern Ireland, that's gone. So to appeal to the majority and say, "Oh, isn't the UK a good place? Look at what we're doing for you." I don't think that would work. I really don't.
No.
If there was a poll, Pat, in 3 years' time, say, do you think border poll? Do you think it would be passed for unity?
I'm not sure with that, Jude, but I know the longer this keeps going on, I think the better the chances it will. Because, first of all, Sadiq Khan, I was just reading this morning on the BBC, apparently he's making a major speech somewhere today, the Mayor of London, where he's saying this denial about the impact of Brexit can no longer be denied, that it's doing serious damage, etc., etc., etc. I watched Keir Starmer was giving a speech this morning at Queen's University, and he's basically saying the relationship between London and Dublin has to be repaired big time, and so on and so on. Jude, more and more nationalists are sitting and saying this place. Remember Charlie Haughey's The Failed Entity, and the other factor that should throw in is, you mentioned it earlier on, the DUP. They must be the most, and this thing, they had this sort of reputation for being great negotiators. I think they're, without question, they're the most inept. They have painted themselves into a corner which I think they're going to find very difficult to get out. And of course, the final one is the famous one. I remember years and years ago, Jude, having many a conversation with old Republicans who said the main aim of the whole campaign of the IRA was to make this place ungovernable and to sort of prove that Northern Ireland was a failed entity. And now who's making Northern Ireland a failed entity? It's not Sinn Féin. It's not the SDLP. It's not the UUP. It's the DUP.
Yeah, I saw yesterday where Gerry Adams was down speaking to an Oireachtas committee, and it was about, I think, essentially a united Ireland.
Yeah.
And he made the point that the Irish government Southern Irish government should definitely set up a citizens committee as quickly as possible. In fact, he said a series of them because time was pressing and it was an obvious thing to do. And the only thing he got back from that was some Fine Gael senator woman. I forget what she said. She said something damn stupid, something about the past, or Gerry Adams having the right to talk about people coming together in unity, something like that. Try to dismiss it. But Adams put his finger on it when he said that. Really.
Go ahead.
I think the voters of the South, in part, now of course, housing and health will be first. Yeah. I think in part they will judge the quality of the present government in terms of how well they prepared for a border poll. Yeah. I think that it will have not a major factor, but a significant factor in people's voting pattern.
But let's get this clear. Up until about 2016, 2017, a border poll, after the Good Friday Agreement, the whole thing about United Ireland absolutely went off the agenda. It was no longer a hot button topic issue at all. Yeah. Brexit brought it back centre stage. And Jude, there is no doubt about it, the direction of travel in this last 3 or 4 years is towards unity. And I think we're at a sort of, like an idea, we're on a sort of a seesaw. And this last while, the seesaw has definitely tipped towards unity. For a long time, people didn't want to talk about it, didn't want to discuss it. But it's me and you are discussing it nearly every occasion.
That's right.
When I'm out and I meet people, that's one of the things. And there's also, and you listen to RT now regularly. There are, I'd say almost daily, there's some mention of the fact that Brexit and what's happening in the north, that it's failed state, that things are happening. And Jude, I can see it's only going one direction.
Yeah, I get the Phoenix, as you probably know, online, and they had 2 interesting items in it yesterday. One was a cartoon which I put up on Facebook. You might have seen it. It showed you an airplane, 747, and on it was the Great Brexit balls up or on the side of it. And then it showed you a couple of rockets, Great Britain or something, foot and heading towards the ground. So that sort of caught the whole effort to present Britain as something more than it was when they themselves have inflicted.
But Judy, even know how badly things have gone. Even this week, the Virgin they were going to put up those satellites, and that I know I was about to say effed up, but like that's about the nicest way I can put it. But it's just another example of failure.
This is what the Phoenix was saying. It was a metaphor for the state that Britain was in.
That's just about everything that you this last while. Their balance of payments. By the way, the economy grew 0.5%, or 0.1%. Like, Jude, and that was thanks to the World Cup. Now, how and under God can you claim 0.1 or 0.5% of, like, even how do you measure 0.5? It's just the same. Anyway, go ahead.
It's interesting that the southern politicians, the leaders of the two big parties, that's Micheál Martin and Leo Varadkar, there was an article in the Phoenix as well about that, and they made this point. They said that Leo Varadkar has been clearly making noises about a united Ireland.
Yeah.
And the idea is to leave Fianna Fáil out in the cold, to take, if you like, to steal their clothes, because Fianna Fáil is supposed to be the Republican Party, etc. And it's very true, because Micheál Martin's shared island is so kind of
lukewarm water.
So if Leo boldly comes out and makes a few statements even, and this is what I was saying some time ago, if he sets up a citizens committee to look at the whole notion, or as Jerry Adams says, a series of citizens committees to look at different aspects of the United, I think that'll stand him in good stead in the next election. Do you think?
Jude, I was invited to sort of a Dáil committee or Senate committee before Christmas. So what was it?
Oh, where were you invited? Why wasn't I?
I don't know whether okay, you know someone like knowing Markham in ways. I'm Markham your ways. But anyway, I was invited down, and one of the things, Jude, I got the distinct impression that a lot of politicians down south are running away from the whole concept of citizens sort of get together, a citizen assembly. Now I don't know why. And Micheál Martin,
you know why? He's the most why, Pat.
Of course I know why, but Jude, it's unbelievable. Micheál Martin, he's the most milk and water person I've ever come with. He has understanding of the North is about zero. And he maybe if you lived down in Cork, you're so far removed or something. I really genuinely don't know. But the leader of the so-called Fianna Fáil, the Republican Party, its attitude is joke. By the way, the other side of the story as well. If anybody thinks Leo Varadkar and Simon Coveney are red-hot Republicans, get a life. Yet they're even more. They're more up for discussing the future of this island than Fianna Fáil. That's amazing.
Everything's relative. Everything's relative. I think we'll see more and more Fianna Fáil will try to redress the lack of impetus they have with regard to the border and so on. But you see, at present, they're still playing the tune of, we must reconcile with our Protestant neighbours.
And everybody, someone I have heard, there's a guy on one of these analyst guys that was a sort of friend of mine. He says, and he came on a couple of times on WhatsApp and said, but first, before we get to Unite Ireland, we must unite Northern Ireland. And I was thinking, go on, get yourself a life.
But that's from the John Hume playbook.
But all right, Jude, that could take 300 years.
At least. Well, we leave this because you really could go on at it for a long time.
And on and on and on. Yeah, exactly.
God help them, in a way, you see, Micheál Martin's right in that you do need to reconcile. But that doesn't mean you have to get there assent before you can have a border poll.
That's Jude, it's like asking somebody who's dead for their opinion. It'll never happen.
Well, speaking of death, let's move on to our next item. Lisa Marie Presley has died. I didn't even know that Elvis had a daughter. Did you?
You see, Lisa Marie. No, just my wife said this morning. I was just getting out of bed. She said, she's my death bringer. She told me the morning Terry Wogan died, and she says, "Oh, did you hear who died last night?" And she came in this morning. I thought, geez, Lisa Marie Presley's 54. Elvis was 42. I think his mother was only 50. Geez, they're a family sort of. absolutely sunk in tragedy. And Lisa Marie's son committed suicide last year, and he was 27. I thought, knows how with great fame and great wealth comes great tragedy. Look at the Kennedys.
Well, I'm not sure about that. Well, yes, maybe, Pat. But, you know, it's perfectly possible that there are other families of no profile, of no significance publicly, that went through the same and worse. Every family goes through tragedies. I just think that the whole thing, Elvis, was a big name in pop music, right? And I think he deserved it. And there was an impetus given to his fame by that movie came out the other year, which was very good. I thought, well, the songs were good. But I'm not sure about all the idea of his wife, his daughter, his mother. It's the same as a kind of wee bit like the Kennedy clan. You're a Kennedy, so we'll have to make sure we get you to do this and that and make you an ambassador or whatever. The guy who did the business, so to speak, was JFK. And you might make a case for Teddy Kennedy. Or not Teddy Kennedy, but
Robert. Robert or Teddy. Well, Senator Edward.
Kennedy, Robert Kennedy. You could make a case for him. But after that, all the rest of it is sort of, I think, second generation and third generation, pointless.
Yeah.
With a tendency to sentiment
by the
that
way, I'm going to name drop. I met a couple of the Kennedys, the second generation, and they were not all that impressive, to be honest. But here's the thing: they had the name. Jude, that opened doors like you wouldn't believe.
Oh yeah. What can you remember? Did you speak to them, Pat?
Yeah.
What did you say? Did you say? Is your name Kennedy by any chance?
Oh, the late great John Hume invited me to a dinner years ago, and it was Kerry Kennedy. She was Robert Kennedy's daughter. She was a lawyer, and so she's a very nice girl. But she
what did you talk about, Pat? I want to know what you talked about.
I talked. Brian Foyle was there.
Yeah.
John Hume was there.
Oh,
there were some. I think he was Prime Minister of Finland who was there, and so on.
Wow. You move in high circles, Pat.
No, what do you call it, Jude? I was the editor of the local paper. I was just brought in as a sort of fill in the gap.
Media sweet.
Keep the media, exactly. But anyway, she was a very nice girl and so on. But she didn't strike me, as Albert Einstein or whatever.
You should have said to her, "What do you think of the border? Do you think it's time it went?"
Jude, it was in the 1980s. Actually, no, I have to put it on the record. I'm not disparaging the girl. She seemed very nice and intelligent, but she didn't. She was no like a lot. She came out with a couple of things. One of the things I remember, we got into this discussion about Mrs. Thatcher, and I remember saying, it was after the hunger strikers, and that's just I had to test Mrs. Thatcher with a vengeance. And she started sort of half berating me. She said, Mrs. Thatcher is in a very difficult position. And so on. I was thinking, listen, if you're Irish, do you seriously think I would take that position? And I thought, if you were half smart, you would cop on why Irish people see Mrs. Thatcher. It's like saying, Hitler really wasn't all bad. He was nice to his mother.
And he was a good painter.
It was a good painter.
Okay. Much for the Presleys then. Your next item is one about rare earth metals. And that's in Sweden, is it?
Jude, there's a thing come on the news. You see, one of the funniest things, Jude, I think we mentioned this before. I saw this article on social media about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And it told the story of an Australian mine where they were going for this sort of green energy.
Aye.
And the guy says, he says, this is the biggest load of, codology going. He says, to get whatever it was, 1 pound or 1 liter or whatever it is, he says, here's the machine. He says, it takes 1,000 liters of diesel per shift to keep this thing going. It disturbs so much earth to do this. It needs so much I could keep going and all this sort of stuff.
Okay.
And he said, basically, the bottom point is to produce this one thing, it has done so much damage. So he says, what's this? Now, apparently in China and parts of Russia, these rare earth materials, now, don't ask me what they are. I presume there's things like lithium for batteries and stuff like that and so on. But anyway, the Chinese have been apparently basically been stopping the export of this stuff because they want to keep it for their own phones, for their own electric batteries and all the rest. Now, apparently they found this absolutely rich seam of this stuff. And the Swedish, is it Arctic or Antarctic? I'm not sure. Way near Lapland, somewhere up there. And they said it is absolutely a magnificent find. Now, Jude, I presume there's going to be environmental.
We did not have the same problem that you mentioned. that in order to get at this stuff, you had to expend all sorts of energy.
Yeah, but exactly,
and disturbance.
There's going to be a massive whole environmental issue, and there's going to be protests, I would presume. But they're saying the stuff is there, and it will, and so that China and Russia will no longer be able to control this rare earth stuff. Now, Jude, how long will it take to get there? Maybe 10, 15 years? I'm not sure. But
I'm a bit worried about this. I mean, there's a danger that we say, oh, this will block, the power that China has or Russia has.
Yeah,
so that's good news.
That's
the other way of looking at that is that it's deepening the division between China and Russia and the rest of the world, or the Western world. So I feel a bit uneasy about that.
But you look at there's a big row in the gold mine up in your part of the world, Tyrone.
Yeah, Greencastle.
And years ago, Jude, I remember when I was editor of the journal, I remember somebody sent me this thing of apparently, I think it's Mozambique, where they found what do you call that stuff? It's even more precious than platinum. Is it stuff that's more? It's even more precious than gold. And I can't even remember what the metal is now. But anyway, apparently, I think it's Mozambique. They did sort of these geological surveys, and they found the richest mine, uranium. Is it? I'm not 100% certain what it is. Uranium, right? Anyway. Apparently, in any showing, which is literally where I live, but it's outside Carndonagh, they did a geological survey, and apparently the same coordinates or whatever it is that they found there, and there was an old gold mine there in the 1800s and so on. So they're thinking, but the people down there, they were thinking this is maybe rich, but the people down there don't want it. They're saying, to get 1 ounce of gold, apparently you need to shovel up about a ton of earth,
Well, I would imagine the same thing probably applies.
A couple of 100 tons of earth, sorry.
Yeah, the same thing probably applies to the gold in Greencastle. But you see, they've gone in. Did we talk about this on the air? But
no.
My sources tell me that the mining company have managed to divide the opposition to them.
Yeah. There was a big BBC program about it.
Apparently, there's some piece of land was blocking them, so they got the guy to sell it, and that deepened division. So families are split. Everybody's split.
Judd, there was a great program. You obviously didn't see it. There was a great program on about 2 years ago about the very thing. Actually, right, even families, communities, one saying that this is bringing jobs, it's bringing wealth. Our people here were emigrating. There was not here for our young people, and so on. And the other ones are saying, we lived in a lovely place. It was pristine. There was no environment and pollution, no nothing, and it was a lovely way to live. Now you take which side you're on.
Well, which would you be on?
Jude, I think we pay a terrible price for some of this crap. I was reading last night. There was a beautiful thing about an old Indian woman, about the way where they used to live. American Indian, and it was about the fishing, and the rivers were clean, and the water you could drink the water flowing by. And now it's pollution, and it's their houses and smoke and all the rest of it. I know progress is as important. But Jude, Jesus, sometimes I think we pay a terrible price for modernity.
In a way, that was the new thing that Sean Lemass brought in the South.
Yeah.
The idea of industrialization, and that it was foreign to the Irish thinking, and Dev's image of the country boys and dancing at the crossroads and so on.
But
it's terrible. If you're kids, Pat, if you had kids and they were coming up to the age where they'd be looking for a job, and you knew that either they'd have to go off to Australia or wherever and live there, or and an industry be set up which mightn't make the landscape look particularly well, but your children would stay at home. You'd be sorely tempted to go with that.
Of course you would. But Jude, here's the thing. There has to be some sort of middle road of balance. Like, would you fancy your son going down or daughter going down a mine now, like say in Newcastle in the 1920s, or somewhere like China right now or Russia right now, where there's explosions and there's gas and there's all the rest of it. Now, I take your point exactly. If the choice was, hey, going down a mine and getting some money, or emigrating to Australia, which would you want for your children? I don't suppose either's a great choice.
Yeah, pretty bad. Of course, you keep in mind that it wouldn't all be going. The jobs wouldn't. I think very few. I think would be going down the mine. A lot of them would be, for office work, etc. Anyway, that's okay. There's another item you have for us: a Danish restaurant that has got a fairly.
I saw that the other night.
Bill.
Aye. So it's supposed to be the biggest. I think it's called Zuma or something like that, a bit like this, or Numa, Noma, I think it is.
Yeah.
And they give reindeer brains on a tongue of such and such, and you can pay up to 650 quid for their meal. It's closing because they have finally the Danish Parliament introduced a law that they have to pay the people properly. Up until now, a lot of chefs were going there and as interns and working for free. And of course, these guys were doing all this sort of stuff. But now that they have to pay them, it's no longer a viable retail outlet. But this was so-called. But Jude, what struck me as I was reading it, some of the meals can cost up to 650 quid per head. Now, Jude, that to me is immoral.
Do you think? Well, again, I would come back, Pat, and I would say what the market bears is what you pay. If they can get people who are prepared to pay 650, that's the deal. You know, you can't,
it's capitalism.
If you were running the restaurant and you could charge 650 and people would come, would you not charge it?
Yeah, but Jude, that doesn't. Hey, Dr. Collins, I'm a man with a clerical background like yourself. It's dishonest, immoral, and everything else. And the fact that you can do it doesn't mean it's right.
I thought you were an upright citizen who would abide by things.
Not at all. No, Jude, it just struck me. 650 quid per head for a meal. Oh, good merciful Jesus!
It comes back, Pat. It comes back to this. How much do you want to eat out? You enjoy eating out, don't you? See, I'm fed up.
No, I'm not all that keen on it, but someone every so often just to break the monotony. I don't mind going out when I'm in Spain or somewhere like that. In holidays, I love going out and sitting in restaurants and people watching and so on. But like when I'm home, I rarely, if ever, go out.
Yeah. It's a difficult one. In the old days, of course, we could go to the pub and then drive home. But those days are gone.
Sorry, Pat. Remember in the RT, don't take that fifth pint. God,
they didn't say that, did they?
There was or don't take the fourth pint, I think it was. You were allowed to drink 3 pints back in.
Yeah. And now if you walked past a man who was drinking, you're likely to be over the limit. Okay, the final item, and this is really important, I think. You say that the BBC is effectively going to shut down Radio Foyle.
Absolutely. Jude, let's get this clear. There was a meeting in Derry, and I intended to go, and I forgot all about it, but anyway, there was a meeting in the Guildhall. Mike Nesbitt was there, in fairness to him, and he was very, very good. But here's the point. Radio Foyle was set up to reflect the fact that, BBC Northern Ireland, Belfast, does not speak for the people west of the band. It never has, never will. No. This, the Nolan show, Jude, it's got next to no, what do you call it? What would you say? Status. I don't know anybody that listens to it around here, but it's must listen to in the north. Here, Radio Foyle was set up and got support of local community because it reflected maybe a totally different political, cultural, everything, and social attitudes that are west of the band. Derry is a second city, etc., etc., etc. Now the BBC, quote unquote, because of financial reasons, are a bit basically gutting the station. I would say the building will go. Half the news staff are going to go. I think it's going to be left with sort of magazine program in the afternoon and Sean Coyle playing records, and that's basically it. Jude, the application, John Hume, by the way, I'll finish now. John Hume, they tried to close it some years ago, and John Hume led the campaign to prevent that. He said that BBC Radio Foyle reflected a substantial community west of the band, and it reflected different culture and ethos, and had a different ethos than Belfast, and it was so important.
Yeah, I would agree with you almost completely, but not quite. I think it's certainly true that again and again, Derry and west of the band is starved of things that the other side, the east of the band gets. And this is probably another example of it. But the question I would ask is this: to what extent does Radio Ulster, say, let alone Radio Foyle, how does it represent the community? Like, I'll give you an example. I remember having an argument with, a discussion with Mark Carruthers one time, years and years ago. And I think he was on Good Morning Ulster at the time. He was the presenter.
Yeah.
And I was saying, what's the point in taking these world events and finding some, Belfast man who happened to have lived there 5 years ago and doing an interview with him, whenever the network, the main news programs from London, BBC, were doing the thing, in detail and had correspondence and so on. So the idea that somehow this made it Belfast, and they were serving the Belfast or the East of the Band community, I thought that was for the birds. So my question to you would be, does Radio Foyle really represent? Does it do something for the community? I don't think it do, but does Radio Foyle?
No, Radio Foyle does. No, that's within the confines of BBC. But Radio Foyle, a lot of stuff is local stories. It's like a local newspaper, local magazine. Very good, and it's won a lot of awards. But here's the point, Jude. Let's get this clear: 80% of the students of Northern Ireland are in Belfast. The peace dividend, Belfast gobbled it up almost in entirety. The peace dividend, Belfast is booming. All the new spend on third level education is in Belfast. The roads around Belfast, infrastructure in Belfast. Dude, Derry is dying.
Okay, you've got 50 seconds. What, if anything, can be done?
Well, public pressure. And I think
like what? How?
Well, I think the local leaders have got to get their fingers out and sort of saying, "Wait a minute, we've had enough." By the way, I'm all in favour of cross-border universities, independent of Northern Ireland.
I'd agree with you.
I'm in favour of Radio Foyle staying on air, and I'd say we need to really seriously think about cross-border institutions.
Yes, I agree. That's what you need, is a bit of right at the forefront of not barricades, at least the public profile, to say, we will not take this. Okay.
Bye, Jude.
Sorry.
Bye.
Good weekend.
Thank you, and you.
Look after yourself. Don't go near a dentist. If you see a dentist, back off. Back off.
Exactly. Bye.
Okay. Right, Pat. Thanks.